Welcome to Immigration Briefing. The content of the briefing includes completely unusual, Haiti blocks flights used by migrants going to U.S. southern border. Court temporarily bars federal officials from removing Texas border wire. Council calls for aid amid refugee housing concerns. Macklem warns government spending is hobbling Canada's inflation fight. Judge blocks Biden administration from destroying Texas border fencing. Completely unusual, Haiti blocks flights used by migrants going to U.S. southern border. The Sydney Morning Herald. Haiti's government has banned charter flights to Nicaragua, which migrants fleeing poverty and violence have been using to reach the U.S. The move left around 2,000 stranded travelers in Port-au-Prince, with many of them having paid up to $7,000 for the flights. Over 260 flights departing Haiti have landed in Nicaragua since August, carrying as many as 31,000 migrants. The suspension of charter flights could prompt Haitian migrants to seek other ways to flee their country, experts say. Court temporarily bars federal officials from removing Texas border wire. Washington Post. A federal judge has barred the Biden administration from cutting or removing razor wire placed along the border by Texas officials, ruling that the barriers limit illegal crossings and impose costs on the state. The temporary restraining order allows federal officials to cut the wire to provide emergency medical aid but scheduled a hearing for November 7 to consider Texas' request for a longer-term ruling against the Biden administration. Texas Governor Greg Abbott and the Biden administration have been engaged in a number of legal battles over border security. Council calls for aid amid refugee housing concerns. BBC. Glasgow could face a refugee housing emergency unless it receives financial aid from the UK government, according to the city's homelessness services. The council expects to receive over 1,400 homelessness applications from people granted asylum by the end of 2023. The Scottish Government has requested urgent funding from the Home Office to deal with the surge in applications. Glasgow is Scotland's main dispersal city for successful asylum seekers. The additional cost of housing refugees under the streamlined process could reach £79 million, $105 million, by March 2025. Macklem warns government spending is hobbling Canada's inflation fight. Bloomberg. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem has warned elected officials to consider the inflationary consequences of their spending plans. Macklem said that the combined fiscal promises of governments could lead to increased spending that stokes consumer price inflation, complicating the central bank's efforts to bring inflation back to its 2% target. He urged officials to prioritize policies that expand supply, not just demand, when considering new spending. Macklem's comments suggest that monetary policymakers in Canada are increasingly concerned that they are working at cross purposes with governments in the fight against inflation. Judge blocks Biden administration from destroying Texas border fencing. Reuters. A U.S. judge has temporarily blocked federal immigration authorities from removing razor wire placed along the U.S.-Mexico border by the state of Texas. The judge, Alia Moses, issued the order as she considers a lawsuit filed by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton accusing the federal government of illegally destroying state property. The judge's order prevents the Biden administration from cutting or removing the wire until at least November 13. Paxton's lawsuit claims that U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents have been damaging the wire that Texas had strategically placed to deter illegal border crossings. A hearing on the matter is scheduled for November 7. The super rich have a golden ticket to Australia, but what is it costing? ABC. Australia's Department of Home Affairs is in crisis as a series of controversies and corruption allegations rock the agency. Amid the controversy, it has been revealed that the country's Business Innovation and Investment Visa program, which grants permanent residency to foreign nationals who invest either $5 million Australian dollars, $3.6 million, or $15 million Australian dollars in Australia, has been exploited by criminal syndicates. The visa scheme has been dubbed one of the great warts of our time and accused of attracting dirty money into the country. The Australian government said the introduction of golden visas, as they are known, was prudent, as such schemes were becoming popular worldwide. However, the government has scrapped such programs in the UK and Portugal, among others, due to concerns they attract illicit funds. Concerns have also been raised about Australia's golden visa program, amid allegations of money laundering and other nefarious activities. Canadian support for immigration is slipping, polls show. Some say misinformation is partly to blame. The Toronto Star. Support for immigration among Canadians is waning, according to a pair of new polls. The surveys, conducted by the Environics Institute for Survey Research and Century Initiative, and the Association for Canadian Studies in Metropolis Canada, indicate that Canadian support for immigration has dropped 11% from last year and reached its lowest level since 1998. Concerns about housing shortages and the cost of living have been linked to the decline in support. Japan mulls eased residency requirements for foreign entrepreneurs. Japan Times. The Immigration Services Agency in Japan is considering making it easier for foreign entrepreneurs to obtain residency in the country. This move is intended to stimulate the domestic economy by encouraging more foreign nationals to start businesses in Japan. The agency is planning to allow foreign nationals to stay in Japan for 2 years as a preparation period for starting a business, even if they do not have a place of business or capital funds, as long as they have certified business plans and meet other conditions. U.S. consumers keep spending despite high prices and their own gloomy outlook. Can it last? Associated Press. Consumer spending in the U.S. continues to surge, despite the predictions of economists and even the opinions of Americans themselves. Economists suggest that this trend is unlikely to continue in the coming months, as households are running out of savings and are increasingly relying on credit cards. However, the future of spending remains uncertain due to the unusual nature of the post-pandemic economy. While it is expected that spending will cool in the coming months, a collapse is far from certain. The durability of consumer spending has caught the attention of Federal Reserve officials, who will be keeping their key interest rate unchanged. However, they are also monitoring economic data for any signs of inflation reigniting and require further rate hikes. Businesses, particularly in the service sector, are benefiting from pent-up demand from higher income earners. Last week, Royal Caribbean Group reported strong quarterly earnings as travelers flocked to cruise ships and spent more. Economists have identified several drivers behind the current surge in spending. These include sturdy hiring and low unemployment rates, healthy finances for households emerging from the pandemic, and the substantial growth in home values and stock portfolios for wealthier households. The net worth of the median household jumped 37% from 2019 through 2022, with most of the savings flowing to the wealthiest households. I'm starting again from zero, Afghans pour out of a hostile Pakistan. New York Times. The Pakistani government has told foreign citizens without documents to leave the country by November 1. More than 70,000 Afghans are believed to have returned from Pakistan in recent weeks. The deportation order is seen as a result of increased hostility between the Pakistani and Afghan governments over militants in both nations. Human rights groups have criticized the move, expressing fears that some Afghans may face persecution in their homeland due to past associations with Taliban opponents. However, Pakistani officials have ruled out any extension of the deadline and have set up deportation centers across the nation. Many Afghans are now faced with the choice of staying in a country where they are no longer welcome or returning to one where they have not lived for decades. The Afghan government has said it has established a high commission to provide services to returning Afghans and will set up temporary camps to house them. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Today, we have an array of stories that cover everything from immigration issues to inflation concerns. So, let's dive in. First up, we have the completely unusual situation in Haiti. The government has blocked charter flights to Nicaragua, leaving thousands of migrants stranded. It seems that these flights have become a popular route for people fleeing poverty and violence in Haiti to reach the U.S. Now, with the suspension of these flights, it's unclear what the migrants will do next. Perhaps they'll have to find alternative ways to escape their country. Speaking of immigration, we have news from both Canada and Japan. It seems that support for immigration in Canada is slipping, with concerns about housing shortages and the cost of living being linked to the decline. On the other hand, Japan is considering easing residency requirements for foreign entrepreneurs in an effort to stimulate their economy. It's an interesting contrast between the two countries. Moving on to the US, we have a fascinating story about consumer spending. Despite high prices and a gloomy economic outlook, Americans are still spending up a storm. Economists are divided on whether this trend can continue, as households are running out of savings and relying more on credit cards. The future of spending remains uncertain, but for now, businesses are reaping the benefits. And let's not forget about the ongoing border security issues. In both Texas and Australia, there are legal battles over border fencing and visa programs. In Texas, a federal judge has barred the Biden administration from removing razor wire placed along the border by Texas officials. Meanwhile, in Australia, their Golden Visa program, which grants permanent residency to foreign investors, has come under scrutiny for potentially attracting illicit funds. It seems that border security is a hot topic around the world. Now, let's take a step back and analyze these stories. It's clear that immigration is a complex issue that affects countries in different ways. From the support for immigration declining in Canada to Japan's efforts to attract foreign entrepreneurs, each country is grappling with its own unique challenges. And when it comes to border security, it's a delicate balance between protecting a nation's borders and ensuring the safety and well-being of migrants. As for the US, the resilience of consumer spending is a curious phenomenon. While economists predict a cooling-off period, it's unclear if there will be a collapse or if spending will continue at its current pace. Only time will tell. So, my dear viewers, what are your thoughts on these stories? Do you have any insights or questions? I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.